So my name is Ashna and I will be your presenter for today's webinar. So we will start our session by 4 or 5 so that all of our other clients will also join the call. In the meantime, you can also go through the documents, the timesheet document, so that you can let us know if you have any further queries. So hello everyone. So it's already 4 or 5. So let us proceed. So before starting with the Keka's timesheet module, let me explain to you what is the timesheet is. So the timesheet is nothing but it is a method for recording the amount of a worker's time spent on each project. These time tracking, it can lower the cost in 3 ways. So the first one would be by making the payroll processing much more efficient. Then it will make cost visible so that you can have an option to lower them. And it will also automate the billing and invoicing to your clients. So now let me show you how this Keka's timesheet model works. Let me share my screen for the same. So I hope my screen it would be visible to all. So the very first step which we need to do is to add a client. Now, in order to do the same, we need to click on Add Client. We need to give a client name. Let me add one with my name itself. Then we need to give a manager who would be the person responsible to manage this client. So let me add one. So now once the client name and the manager is added, the next option which we need to give is to add the code. So that code would work as a unique identifier for that client. And also, please let me know over chat if at any point of time, if you are unable to view my screen or if you feel that my voice is not audible to you. So now let me give one unique identifier to my client. The note is an optional option so that if you have some description which you would like to add for the further reference purpose, then the same can be added. If not, then you have an option to skip the same. Now, once the client is added, we need to give the billing rates. So this billing rate will going to define what would be our billing currency. So if it would be in INR, USD, so we can select the same from the drop down. Now, once after like the billing currency is added, we need to define what would be the different billing role which we are having. So these billing role, this will specifically help us by taking care of the billable projects. So say for example, if we are having a project XYZ and we have different billing roles over that, like a developer, a tester, then we can add those roles and accordingly we can also define the hourly rate for them. So let me add one billing role as an example. I'm giving the hourly rate as 200 INR. Let me add one more billing role, tester, and let me give the value as 150 INR. Let's see. So this is how our client has been added. So once a client is added, we can go through, like we can add different projects into it. We can also look into the rate if there is any updates required, and we can define the contacts, like who would be the person to whom we need to reach out for that particular client. Now, when it comes to adding a project, so there are two ways which we can do that. First one is we can directly come to project clients. We can search for that client. I have added one with the name Ashna Sheikh itself. You can click on the client name. You can go to the project, and from here you can define the same, or you can directly go to the project. So let me add one from here. I clicked on add project. I need to select under which client that project needs to be there. So let me assign it under the newly created client. The next would be the name of the project. So we can give the defined name. So let me add one as a we can give a defined project code. So again, this project code, it will work as a unique identifier. We need to make sure that this code hasn't been assigned to any of the another like different projects. Now we can define the state. So status would be like whether it could be in progress, is it completed or not, or is it cancelled. We cannot have the option to change the status. So let me select one as in progress. Now, what would be the start date that we can say that we define start date for this project? So let me mark it as the 1st of September 2020. And let me have the end date as the same as per this current year. We can give a project description. So this description defines different factors which we need to take care of. So these different description, it will help us to go through, or we can use it like a note to go through the different factors that needs to be taken care of later on. Next is testing and the Chinese. So here you can see that there is a name which is defined as project custom field. So we have an option to define our own custom fields, which would be helpful for us. So we can say that out of the system defined fields, we have an option to give our own fields, which will help us to capture the informations in a better way. Now, the next would be the billing settings. So under this billing settings, we need to define whether this particular project is a billable or a non-billable one. And if the project is billable one, then we need to show that whether all the tasks under that particular project is billable, or is it that only some specific task would be the billable one. So in order to take care of both, so if we are having a scenario where we have under one project, if we are having a certain task which is billable and a certain task which is non-billable, then we can select this option, which will allow the employees to enter those tasks as well, which would not be billable in their timesheets. Now, we have one more option of linking this project to the expense. So it would be like if any of the expense which has been beared by the employees with regards to this particular project, then the same can be enabled so that employees can raise a request of the same. Now, once defining our billing settings, we can move ahead with the timesheet settings. So these timesheet settings, it consists of three different settings. So the first one is all the employees can submit the timesheet for this project. If yes, then first of all, we need to make sure that this is not a billable project, because this particular project will reflect to all the employees. Second would be employees should add comment for a task while filing a timesheet. So it would be like whenever employees are filling their timesheet, they need to make sure that a comment has been updated from their end. So this comment section, it would be made mandatory for them. Next would be employees should mention the start and end times of a task. So whenever we are capturing this time frame which has been used by by the employees for that particular project, we have different way to do that. So the first one is employees, they can give how much duration they have worked. Say it would be 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours accordingly. Second would be they can give the start and the end time. So that accordingly system will calculate the number of duration they have spent over this project. And we have one more option, that is the use of the timer. So how this timer will work is employees, they will enable the timer. I will show you in the further steps. So they will enable the timer when they started working on a particular project or a task. And then once they have been taken a pause, or if they are not working on it, they have an option to close it. So accordingly, system will just consider their time which has been, we can say, the spent over this particular project. So now our project, it is added. So once the project is added, we have further settings for it. So the very first setting, let me first visit that project. So I have added it as a software biz. So in order to do that, first I need to go to projects, and then from here I can select my required project. I also have an option to do the filter with regards to the client or the status of that project. Now, when I will click to this, to the name of the project, there would be some further screen which is reflecting to me. The very first would be the summary. So I will come to this one later on. Let me first proceed with the task section. So by coming over here, I have an option to add the task. Now, adding a task, it can be done in two ways. The very first way would be to add this task individually from here, or to import the same from the repository. So we have a separate task repository under our project section where you can include all of these tasks. So you can click on add task and you can add this task which could be directly pasted to the required project. So let me just add one task. Now that particular task has been introduced in my repository. So now let me just add it to my project. So again, I come to projects. I type the required project name. I clicked on the name. I came back to task. I clicked on import from repository. So from here we have a different set. So from here I have an option to select the required one. So I've added one with the name as development ISO. The same has been selected by me. Now I clicked on import. Okay, my bad. So I need to also give the billing type. So as mentioned earlier, under each project, we can have a billable and non-billable task. So I need to select the same. So now I imported one task under this particular project. So now there has not been defined any estimated hours which need to be spent. So let me edit the same. So from here we need to define what would be the tentative timeline that needs to be shared in this particular project. So let me give it as 20 hours. This has been done. Now, After adding a task, we have different settings which need to be taken care of. The very first would be adding a team lead. So the very first step, what we did is adding a client. Then we added a project. We provided a task. Now we need to give this the task resources. For that, we need to add a team. So the very first would be we need to select any of the employee name. So let me select an employee with the name Ashna. So whatever would be the department, location, and the reporting manager which has been assigned as per the core HR, the same will reflect. We can give the start and the due date for the completion of this project. What would be the billing role? So if we will select on this drop down, you will have an option to select from the different billing role which has been defined while adding this project, or you will have an option to create a new billing role. So let me select one. The billing rate got auto updated as per the billing rate selected. You have an option to edit the same. Now I clicked on add. So this is done. Now we have taken care of all the required steps. First was to add a client, then to add a project, then to add task and the resources as well. So apart from this, we have different section under the project section. So the very first would be the summary. So the summary is nothing but an analytical view of total overall hours served in this particular project, how many billable and non-billable hour which has been spent by the employees, the total revenue which got generated with the help of this project, pending hours which need to be involved, and what would be the pending payment, like on the basis of the invoice generated. We also have an option of the settings. So from here, you have an option to provide the approval chain. So these approval chain, it consists of to whom this timesheet needs to get approved before marking it as the complete submission by the employees. So once employee, they will click on submit button in their timesheet, then it will go as per this particular approval chain. So right now here we have the client manager. I'm not making any changes to that, but we have an option to add two different approvers in the same level, or to have a level wise approval. Yeah, so there would be one difference. If it would be a two different approver in the one level, then it could be an either or format, or we can have a different level as per the requirement. So now let me click on update. This is that. So we have our project managers, which has already been added while adding this task. So we have this option to manage this visibilities. So what this project managers will going to do, or what would be the different section which each of the project manager will see, the same can be defined. Customer success is the name of the customer success is reflecting by default, because this employee is a global admin. He will have an option completely. So from here we can also manage the visibility, whether he or she would be able to view the managed task or not, whether they will have the option to manage the team or to manage the financial. Now you can see that this view financial page, it is not updatable for this employee, because as this person being an global admin, we can also add another employee as the manager, and we can define what would be the different section which needs to be visible for this particular employee. Now I clicked on save. The next would be the timesheets. So the settings which we did, that whether an employee would be able to, like whether that particular, for that particular employee, this comment section, will it be mandatory or not? The same has been selected. Whether they need to give the start at the end time, or they can use the timer or not. So we have an option to edit it at any point later. Then the next would be the billing settings. So this would be the settings which we did while adding the task, and while adding the project. The same can be updated later on. The next would be expense. So now from here, we can see that what are the different expenses which has been there for this particular project. Now, so this is also done. Then now what are the different settings which we need to take care of would be how this invoicing is generated. So what we did right now is a client is added, the project is added, task is added, and we have also assigned its resources. Now, once this timesheet is submitted, it is then how we will going to raise this invoice to our clients. So now we can go to this invoicing. we have an option of to invoice. So from here we can get the list of all the clients for which the employee this invoice need to be generated. Say we have, there is one with the name as ABCD, so we can click on invoice now. Now once we are doing it, here you can see that we have some different legal entities which is reflecting. So there are different set of settings which we can do as per this entities. Now from where we can do the settings? So in order to do that, we need to go to settings. We have this option of timesheet invoice settings. So from here, all the different legal entities which we have, we can give this address line for it. We have an option to update the logo for that particular entity. What would be the invoice header? The same can be defined. If there is some header note which needs to be given, then the same will reflect. Then we also have an option to give the payment instruction. So this payment instruction, it consists of whether the steps an a client need to follow while while doing the payment for the invoice, or if you would like to have the financial information, then the same can be added. So this payment instruction section can be used as per the requirement. Now, once this general setting is done, then we have an option to raise this invoices, which I will show you in the next step. But before doing that, there are also further things which we need to take care of, which includes the taxes. So how are we going to add this taxes? For that, we have an option to add a tax rate. So we can give a particular code for this tax, a description as per the requirement, the name of the component. It could be as a CGST, SGST, or any other as per the requirement. We can give the defined rate and we can add the same. So accordingly, this tax rate will define. Now, what would be the different payment terms which can be used? So this payment term is nothing but to determine the state of the particular invoice. So it could be like due, payment due, demo payment. So accordingly, we can add the terminologies which we can use in order to define the payment terms for each of these invoices. So once this is done, I'm so sorry, it took some time to load. Yeah. So we were under project. Invoicing. Now we can click on invoice now. We can select the required legal entity under which this invoice need to be generated. What would be the different projects which are included for this particular invoice? Once this is added, we can click on next. Then there would be some further information that needs to be given. So it would be invoice to address, then the invoice number. Yeah, so one over here is PO number. So this would be a mandatory field. The payment term, which I showed you earlier, the same can be added from here. So we need to first introduce it from the settings option, and then the same can be used from the drop down. Next is the client. So who would be the client contact to whom it needs to be reached out to? What would be the issue date for this particular invoice, and what would be the due date? We can give a subtitle or we can give a subject or a title for this invoice. Now, all these items which needs to be there, under which header it needs to be grouped. Right? It would be on the basis of task, on the basis of resources, or on the basis of billing rule. So here, if I select the billing rule, then the different billing rule will reflect on the basis of the number of hours per quantity. So the billing rate which we have added, on the basis of the same, it will reflect. So right now I'm adding it manually because this is just a dummy project for which we are invoicing, and on the basis of the different rate which has been given and on the basis of number of billable hours which employee has submitted, this will going to get reflected. So I selected a tax group. So this tax group RES, it has been subdivided into two options. One will be the CGST and SGST is 20% to 10%. as per what has been introduced into the system under the settings option. So accordingly, system has calculated the amount. Now, once this is added, we have an option to preview it. So this is how the invoice will reflect. So accordingly, on the basis under the legal entity option, you can add your own logo. The same will reflect, and on the basis of the different payment description. So as mentioned earlier, we can either give the number, the defined step which an employee need to follow, or the payment method. Like if it is a bank transfer, then what would be the details that will be needed by the client? The same can be added. So either you have an option to you have an option to save it or download it. Once it is saved, then you have an option to update the status of all of these invoices. So if it is just saved, you can have an option to select it as drafted. If the payment has been received, then accordingly the status can be updated. Now, the next option what we have under the invoicing is invoices closed. So all the closed invoices, so the closed would be the invoices which got cancelled, which got paid. So accordingly, those will reflect under the invoices closed. So you have an option to download it for the further reference purpose. Now, once this is done, so the next question would be, if we are having these clients and projects in bulk, adding them individually would be a tedious task for us. So how we can do it in bulk? For that, we can come to this bulk import option. We have this option to import these clients and projects in bulk, assign this project task and the project resource. So the only factor which need to be taken care by while importing the sheet number 3, it would be that whatever is the billing role which has been added, that billing role is already there into the project task. So you need to go to the project section and then you can add these billing roles, and accordingly these billing roles can be assigned to the required resources. Next over here is timesheets. So all this timesheet which has been submitted for the approval will reflect over here. All the timesheet, all the empty timesheet which has been submitted by the employees will reflect under empty timesheet section. We have an option of manage timesheets. So, okay, it is loading. So under this manage timesheet option, you have an option to assign this timesheet to the employees. Now, if we are assigning this timesheet, here there is a terminology is policy. Then how this policy needs to be created? For that, we have an option of timesheet policy. Now, there is one thing that need to be keep in mind is that we can only have one policy in place. So how this policy will work is, once the required details is added, you have an option to create your own policy. You can give the policy name. You have an option to add the description. There are a few sections which we cannot update. That includes what would be the period. So by default in system, it would be weekly timesheet period and we don't have any option to change it. The next step would be the start date of the week. And you have an option, but for the very first time, you have an option to define the start date of the timesheet. Apart from this, we have different other option that would be the hour setting. So these hour setting, it consists of the minimum hours which need to be spent in this timesheet period. How to capture from the attendance module. So if you want this to get integrated with the attendance, then how this need to be captured on the basis of effective hours or the gross hours, the same can be checked. Then to allow attachment. So whenever an employee is submitting their timesheet, is there any further attachment which they need to submit? If yes, then the same can be added. So now we looked into this with the admin's view. Now how this timesheet need to be submitted by the employees. So once a particular timesheet or we can say that a timesheet policy is assigned to an employee, then those employee can go to me timesheet. So from here, they will have an option to view all the different projects which has been assigned to them. Say there is one project as a TCS payroll. They can select the task. So all this updated task will reflect. They can select one. Now from here, they will have an option. So accordingly, the different configuration made for each of the project, the same will reflect. So here you can see that we have an option of timer under XYZ. But when if you are checking into the chocolate story, there is no timer reflecting. It depends on the different configuration set for each of the project. So we can start the timer. So since today is November 5, so automatically my timer for November 5 got updated. I have an option to stop it. So that whatever the time which has been spent over this particular project will going to get captured. The second would be to directly give the number of hours spent. So say for today, I spent 4 hours in the chocolate factory, then the same is added. We have enabled the option of comment as the mandatory field for this particular timesheet, then which is why this dialog box is reflecting. Let me add a comment. So accordingly, whatever would be my number of hours in that particular week has been spent on this timesheet, the same will reflect. So as informed earlier, in Keka, the timesheet could be in the weekly basis. We don't have any option to update it. Now, next would be if say for example, if I'm an employer and I'm working on a project, in the mid of that duration, I wanted to take a leave. So I don't want it to get affected my entire timesheet performance. So what I can do is I have an option to apply leave. So either I'm applying leave from the normal HR, from the normal section, or by clicking on apply leave, system will direct me to this me leave section. From here, my leave would be applied. So accordingly, if any of the day, if I'm on leave, then the same will reflect over here. So that accordingly, system will update my actual hours spent in that particular week for that particular project will be calculated. Now, if we have enabled the option of attaching the file, so the same is reflecting. Now, what kind of file needs to be updated? You can click on this eye icon, which will show you the different formats which would be acceptable. So employees can either keep it safe for the if the particular week is still on is going on, or they have an option to submit it. Right now, this is a view which we are having. We can select for which particular week the timesheet need to be submitted. So say for example, if I haven't submitted my previous day timesheet, then I will have an option to go with the same. So I can select. So these are showing different weeks on which my timesheet didn't got submitted. So now the question arises is, if I didn't submitted my previous timesheet, then how I would be aware of what would be my previous due timesheets are. For that, I can come to this past due option. So here it is showing that there is 25 timesheets which need to be submitted from my end. So this 25 timesheet, it is not mentioning the number of different kinds of projects which is there for me to submit, but this number of durations, like this number of weeks for which my timesheet needs to be submitted. So since I haven't submitted any timesheet from May 11, which is why the same option is reflecting. So, like if we can take this example, here I need to work from May 25 till May 31. But I have only submitted the values till May 30, or I can say that my number of hours is less, or due to any reason, due to my leave application or any reason, if my approver doesn't want to accept that timesheet, or they wanted me to make some amendments in that, then how would I be able to know it? For that, I can go to this rejected timesheet. So this is the section where I can have the summary of all the timesheets which got rejected, so that I can take an action accordingly. Now, when it comes like in a particular project, how many hours which needs to be submitted. So let me select one project assigned to me. So here I can view what are the different billable and the non-billable hours which has been submitted from my end. So this, so for example, there is a duration of my timesheet which was from May 30 to April 5, which even got approved. So the task was the development task, and we can view the number of billable and non-billable hour which I have spent on that particular project. So I even have an option to export it in the form of an Excel or in a PDF format. So that was for the project time. Now I have this week summary. So this week summary will show like under the defined particular week, how many timesheet which has been submitted or not submitted by me. So along with the status, I can view the same. So say for example, from here I'm selecting it. So all of my projects from October 1 to November 5 that need to get submitted, then accordingly the same will reflect. I also have an option to generate this report in an Excel and in a PDF format. Now, my timesheet is added. I have also submitted my timesheet. So the next question would be from where I can go through different reports of it. So if in future for the edit purpose, if I would like to view this timesheet report, then from where I can do that? I can come to project reports. So from here we have different reports with regards to clients, projects, and the project work hours. So we have the project with regards to the client details, the project details, billings, invoices, the status of the timesheet, whether it would be employee-wise status, project-wise status, or the project. I'm so sorry. Yeah. Or the project overdue or expired wise status. So accordingly, we can generate this reports. So these reports, it can be downloaded in an Excel format so that you can view the same, and the same can be used for the audit purpose. The last would be the settings. So now under the settings, we need to define who would be the approver for this timesheets. Once I will click on edit, we have an option to add different level of approvers. So this would be the by default settings which will reflect in each of the project. So how it would be different to which I showed earlier was that was the approval chain defined for that particular project. But here we are adding an approval chain which would be used as the default one. So if we forget to add any of the approval chain, then this approval chain would be uh, taken into consideration by the system till the time we are defining a required approval chain in the system for that particular project. The next would be the billing classification. So this billing classification which we will define, but what are the different project types it should be having, like billable, non-billable, multiple, cross. So accordingly, we can define our own billing classification, then the same can be used into the project. Now, the project attributes. So while adding the project, I showed you this custom project. So these custom project fields can be added from here. So if I will click on this manage project attribute, I will have an option to give my own custom project types. So by default, we have this project name, code of the project, client name, what would be the start and the end date of the project needs to be, and the status. Apart from that, we have an option to give this custom field, and we can also make it mandatory or not. So this could be as per the organization's requirement. So that's all what we have into the timesheet. Now, when it comes to the view of it, so if we want to have an analytical view of the entire client and the project and the timesheet module, which is added into the system, then we can come to the project summary. So we have this colorful screen, which consists of number of clients, which is there into the system, number of projects which we have, how many timesheet which didn't got submitted by the employees, number of time different projects or different tasks which didn't got allotted, and how many pending approvals which we are having. We also have an option of this analytical view to view this last week hours. So these hours, the segregation of the same will take place on the basis of this billing classification. Is it billable, non-billable, multiple, and so on. We can have this analytical view of this resource allocation. So under each of the client, what are the group of the resource which has been allocated, then the same will reflect. Number of work hours which has been spent with regards to billable and non-billable tasks, the same will reflect. So we have an option to toggle between monthly and the weekly one. The next would be the pending approvers. For which of the employees the approver is still pending for how many timesheet, the same will reflect. And we can also view all the unsubmitted timesheet by each of the employees. So that's all what we have into the timesheet. Now, we also have some recent updates. So whenever, not even when it comes to the timesheet, I can say that for all the modules, we have an option of the Keka updates. So there has been some recent updates made, which could be directly referred from here. So our employee timesheet, which got revamped. So you can see that when we looked into the me timesheet section, the view is slightly changed. So we have an option to change it to the card view. So accordingly, you can also view the description of the same in the Keka updates. So now we're talking about the new update. So there it has been mentioned we have an option of this card view. How we can toggle into that? Employees, they can come to me timesheet. On the right hand corner, we have this option of having it in a table view or in a card view. So if I want to toggle, then the same can be done. So here it is reflecting in view of different cards. So accordingly, I will have an option to toggle in between, like which would be the timesheet view, which I would like to have. I also have an option to copy this hours from the previous week. Say, for example, I'm working on a project XYZ in the previous week and the same week as well. And the number of durations served was the same. So I can copy it from here. And the same can be used. So whatever the comments which has been added, they can also be viewed into the comment summary. So that's all what we have in the timesheet. So I believe that this webinar would be useful for you. If you have any issues or if you have any queries, then you can surely reach out to us over the chat and we will be happy to assist you with the same. And yeah, if you also have any issues with regards to any of it, yeah, so like there is one which has been added by Ms. Lata, that from where the end date of any project can be edited. So let me share my screen to show you the same again. So in order to edit the end date for the project, you can go to project, projects. So from here, you can click the name of any of the project. So by doing the same, you would be like directed to that particular project view. You have an option of update it. And from here, you can edit the end date accordingly. So whenever we are any of the employee, they are in leave. It doesn't mean that they need to apply leave in a timesheet section separately and in the leave section separately, because anyhow, even if they will go in me timesheet section, system will direct them into the me leave section only. So they need to just apply for this leave from one section and it will automatically reflect in the timesheets. Yes, once the end date is given, we have an option to edit it at any time later. Sure. So the path which I showed you, the same, let me show it to you again. So I hope my screen is visible. So whenever you want to change the end date, you need to just search the name of the project under project section. You need to click on the name of it. Once you will click to the name, from here you will have this option of the three dots on the top right corner of this particular project. You can click on update. and you can uh, give the end date. So you can just change the end date as per the requirement. Say for example, earlier the end date for this project was 31st of October. I want to change it to 30th of November. The same can be done, and I click on save. So this is how you can update the end date of the project. So I hope, Miss Lata, you would have gone the like you would have get the path of changing the end date to a particular project. So how this end date will apply to the team members would be, we are just assigning different tasks to each of the project. So let me show you that again. So what will happen is, a particular project, it consists of different tasks. These tasks due date is something different and the project end date is something different. One project can have multiple tasks. So having an end date is just that we are just extending the lifetime of it. It's not like we need to just go and update it for a particular employee. All of the employee who is working on this project, on the basis of the due date given to the task, they would be able to submit the timesheet. So it would be like, say right now I have updated one as the 30th of November. So what will happen if that particular project was earlier it was till 31st of October. So if I would try to view under my me timesheet, if I try to view the project which is assigned to me, this project would have been lost. But now with the due date has been extended, accordingly this project will reflect in my job number. So it is not a different update need to be done for that particular employee who is working on that project. So there is some subcategory which has been mentioned, where the dates are not getting changed. So I just wanted to get a confirmation. Are you talking about this task or you are talking about the project? Because right now, which I showed you, that this can be done. And if even like in later stage also, if you face any issue or any query, you can surely drop us an email at support@keka.com, and we will take care of the same. So thank you so much for your time spent. It has been great to discuss the same with you all. We would also like you all to give us a poll regarding the new update. So the update which has been showed with regards to this card view and the table view. So please go through the poll to show us your showcase your feedback over the same, and accordingly we'll take care of it. Thank you so much.